Hello everyone, today I'm going to be watching the Penumbra collection review by MandaloreGaming. I have no idea what this is, but I can't even name it. Penumbra. What? What is the name? 3, 2, 1, go. The door is broken, is everybody, what the hell happened? What the No! It's the scariest fuck, seems like it. Alright.
Amnesia the Bunker came out a while back, and I've heard a lot of good things. It also made me realize that I haven't played an Amnesia game since A Machine for Pigs. I've gone back to Penumbra, The Dark Descent, Soma, but A Machine for Pigs left some kind of brain block in me. So I figured I'd go back and play through the fictional and adjacent games up to the
Machine
Bunker.
for Pigs
These
wasn't
won't be
that
pure
good.
back-to-back videos, and Penumbra especially is something I've wanted to talk about a long time now. I can only guess things turned out this way because playing through such a one-sided nuclear explosion of a safari has made me yearn to be the hunted one again. So, let's take a look at the entire Penumbra trilogy.
Alright.
You play as a man named Philip, and the story kicks off a few days after the funeral of his mother. His father abandoned the family before Philip was even born, and to complete his championship deadbeat dad streak, he's dead by the time he's written the letter as well. The letter from the mysterious Howard begs Philip's forgiveness and includes a key. The key leads to a bank safety deposit box filled with notes, an indecipherable book, and a location somewhere in northern Greenland. Okay. Howard says he's sorry for what he did and that he can't explain more, but Philip must destroy it all. Well, 30 years of absence is a lot to let go, so after a year of preparation, Philip arranges a journey to the uninhabited spot in northern Greenland, off to find answers of what his father was doing and leaving a letter of his own.
There are things I need of you. Things you may not understand and may not wish to do. But please, do not make the same mistakes I did. My father, Howard, deserted me before I was born. I could claim the loss of my mother. What? And the letter I received after her funeral. I blinded me to what I had to do. It would be what? My downfall, my name is Phil. If you're lucky, then by the time you receive this, I will read what?
This all being in past tense doesn't bode well, and we have a Howard and Philip, just no Lovecraft. Yet. After a long boat ride and argument with his old friend Jack, Philip makes it to Greenland.
Oh my god, this reminds me of
it sucks.
Lighthouse, the game.
There's mysterious howling in the wind. He does escape it by finding a mysterious metal hatch, sheltering him from the storm and kicking off 3 games of nightmares. Because when you find Arthas Menethil's trap house hobbit hole and it's full of empty boxes of ammo, that's not a good sign.
No! Oh my god!
I think that covers enough for now. Let's look at the graphics. Penumbra Overture was made by a small team and used an in-house engine.
So
if you compare it to other FPS games from the time, at least on a technical level, then yeah, it is on the lower end. But that wouldn't feel entirely fair because this is a first-person adventure game. There is combat, but it's not the focus, and almost all of it can be avoided if you're careful. You move through a mysterious underground facility, dealing with strange creatures and occasionally solving puzzles.
When was this game created,
inspired, and the game is upfront about that too. But besides having pure platforming
or
other kinds of
say it, but
puzzles, it has more of the traditional collect items in your inventory, combine objects here and there, and fighting is something you do when you have to rather than the focus. And even then, smart use of your inventory and setting up an area means there are better ways of fighting. Because combat is intentionally clunky, so it gives you cool and engaging options to work with or around those limits, instead of really locking you in with some rough combat sections. So anyhow, the game has a stark, dreary look to everything. Even in rooms dominated by machinery or shelves of ice. It all feels so empty and isolating, and it's a good reminder of how remote you actually are. What makes it interesting is that the deeper you go, the more dense areas can start becoming. Going farther into Bedrock Hell reveals more answers, but it also comes across as more lived in and less surreal than previous areas. You're being breadcrumbed by little pockets of civilization and humanity on the way down, but ultimately, you are going deeper. The drab color scheme and the lacking but effective use of lighting give the game a lonely feel that I haven't felt in many others. I've played games like Infra that perfectly capture that in parts, but not as relentlessly all the way through like Penumbra.
Thank you for actually saying your name when switching, because I sometimes confuse that.
Which I'm sure some people are actively seeking out after Thanksgiving. The sound design complements this perfectly and is definitely punching above the visuals. There's a constant background drone, strange rumblings in the tunnels, maddened whispering. It does a ton of work pulling you in.
Oh, that's like backroom thingy. The feeling of something but nothing. Oh, that's its signature Valve map engine. Oh my god, yeah, this is yes. Oh yes, this is fuck! This is so terrifying! What the fuck, dude? What do you call this? It had a name. Subminimal spaces or some shit?
The effects themselves usually aren't even that complicated or unusual, but they can come through with such a clarity that you don't expect from a game that looks like this. Then the sounds of some enemies will be uncertain and muffled enough that you're not sure where they are, which is such a great touch. The game has lots of appropriate string-focused building tension music, which is often front and center in the foreground and works great there.
What is a puzzle? What? I can't see shit!
Like, it is fairly common creep-in and fallback horror game music, but there are some tracks tied to events in the story that really are haunting and beautiful.
Oh. Peaceful.
Honestly, I think the soundtrack is incredibly underrated. Right from the title screen, there's so much emotion.
It's probably one of the... I would say... the ambient and soundtrack seems like to be the strongest suit of this game. The graphic doesn't look that crazy, and the story seems a bit intriguing, but I still have no idea what it's about.
Though to be fair, the best stuff is drowned out by how often you hear the dogs on the prowl theme and tracks like that, but man, the highs are so high. Also, the game only has 2 voice actors. One is Philip in the opening narration, who's fine, but his role is also uncredited. It's actually the game's writer. They were just running short of time and money and couldn't hire a proper Philip in time for launch. The other is a crazed rat man who only contacts you over the radio and is your only real friend.
Those holes in my mind are increasingly gaping. You cannot breach the inner sanctum of the place of storing. The entryway is blocked. So what if the squashy material between my ears is squashier than most?
He absolutely sells a character that has lost his mind, but knows things. Where you might not feel too invested in Howard, good old Red here gives you a lot more to chew on. He just gives a really solid performance. When it comes to the game itself, Penumbra was intended to be a trilogy from the very beginning. Like the original Half-Life 2 plan, they would be short episodic games so would come out not too far away from each other. This plan was kept slightly better than Half-Life's. Keeping that in mind, Overture is a short game, only a few hours long. And narrative-wise, it does make it tricky to try and view it standalone. There are lots of musings on Howard and the family situation, plenty of clues that are brought up but not resolved or elaborated too much on. Overture actually is just surface level. Philip is breaking through the upper levels of the strange bunker, and won't be in the heart of it until the next game. There are still some good side stories to follow, like the tale of a trapped scientist. It's possible he's still alive somewhere, he's just been living off of spiders. He thought they were safe to eat for a long time until they started getting bigger, and then he got a strange tongue infection, which you can find the results of. He kept it with the nice vintages too, so I don't know what that's about. Anyways, controlling Penumbra is very interactive. If they don't go in your inventory, picking up and using objects can mean actually picking them up with your mouse and moving them around. There's no open door.
I'm just imagining the shit that dude went through. Eating spiders, bro.
Button, you have to physically push and pull them. So. The same goes for looting. Do you want to open a cabinet or a desk? Well, you'll be opening every individual drawer. Sure, it's not offering you a trip to Six Flags, but you may have been somewhere similar before. Having this kind of physicality puts you more in the game world. Interacting with objects actually gives you a sense of density and weight. This feeds you a lot of information that you might not consciously notice. Whether you're trying to build a makeshift bridge or break a machine, having the objects in the environment interact realistically does ground the game in logic. A lot can be moved or knocked down, and you can alter their properties to make it possible. So it may be an adventure game with puzzles and obstacles, but it's telling you to approach them like a human being, and not some kind of baboon who's strung out on bath salts.
That's awesome. What the fuck is this?
Penumbra says thinking this through like you're in the situation is the way to go. Even on the rare occasion where something seems off, like an important item being especially high up and hard to see on a shelf, but you then find a note that reveals some workers were tormenting their hobbit coworker by putting the items up there in the first place. That's about as far as Overture will stretch its problem-solving logic. There are still a few tedious ones, but nothing that makes you feel too crazy. Going back to that item interactivity, it's also helpful for dealing with the locals. Knowing which heavy objects can properly block off a door, or serve as an improvised weapon, or be loud enough to be thrown as a distraction.
That's
Philip
awesome.
Is not a fighter, and especially on
the fact that you can use the fact that you can just pick something and put it in the fan, bro. That blew my mind.
as a distraction.
Usually there's just a cinematic. Oh, this specific item. It's like
Philip is not a fighter, and especially on higher difficulties, his enemies will get
crazy.
stronger and faster. Like I said before, a straight-up fight won't be ideal. Stealth is one of the strongest approaches Philip has, and it's tied to his one superpower. See, normally you have two light sources. A glow stick, which will last forever but casts very little light, and then a proper heavy-duty flashlight. Though in all his wisdom and preparation, Philip apparently bought a flashlight that was used for clearing out Viet Cong tunnels. It drains multiple batteries per hour, and finding more automatically refills it a measly 10%.
Oh
if Alan Wake had this flashlight, he'd be dead before sundown. That's how shit it is. But you won't catch me using it too often because by just holding still, Philip will gain night vision. So by being quiet and careful, you can save your flashlight for when it really matters.
Oh!
So the main loop is gathering items and completing puzzles while keeping your face. And it's having those two aspects intertwined that makes the game work so well. Like on its own, having the click drag interactivity is neat, I guess. It's fun to use more arm movement than usual to actually smash something, and then you feel kind of annoyed because turning a valve feels incorrect, like you need a bigger mouse pad or something. It puts you more hands-on in the world, noticing things you might not have otherwise, but it's also clunky and intentionally so. To get into that more, one of the enemy types you face down are dogs. Aggressive, fast, likely undead dogs. The dogs you see on a walk that you're confident the owner will have no control over when they go apeshit. Like, surely a wooden door and two barrels will at least slow Cujo down.
Fuck those owners! Fuck those owners! Keep your dogs, please! Guys, dogs are angry sometimes. And they don't bite you, they bite someone else. So be careful, be chill with your dogs. Take care of them and make sure they don't bite other people. God damn, that's so fucking annoying. When someone else has like a very, very angry and just insane dog. And it's good to them, that's why it's like, oh, no, my dog is pretty chill. No, the dog is a fucking monster.
You could sneak past them, but if you're staying in an area, that means you'll have to keep sneaking past them. Which is still doable, especially if you have super distracting items like flares. But you could find stuff that would really occupy their time, like beef jerky and other food. You could leave it alone from there, or compound that distraction with a chemical compound and send it straight to the dog afterlife.
Oh god,
but that's assuming there's only a dog around, and a big explosion won't call in more.
The animation
at the end of the day, you could go for the straight up fight, but your swings will still be awkward and slow going. A dog usually won't stick around to fight to the death either, and will run off, howling for other dogs, or finding a spot to recuperate. Even by using the environment to try and get an easy pick-off, there's still a lot of factors that you can't be sure about. And that is what puts so much great tension into the enemy encounters. Sometimes you launch an ambush and it goes perfectly to plan. Sometimes you think you have a great setup and then it all falls apart. Then sometimes you're caught with your pants down, make a split-second decision, and it all works out. Overture gives you a lot of options for dealing with enemies, but never...
That's awesome! Bing, dang! But... I love that the dog just ragdolled the way. It didn't hit it, bonked it.
Though if you are a natural at it,
I wish I could hear the sound effects.
Getting good at pickaxe foo is a very good solution.
Yeah,
it does stay floaty enough to not feel reliable. You can see here the dog is like sinking to the floor. It's not perfect, but for its first iteration, there's a lot of interesting
because it doesn't have a ragdoll animation.
All the options in deciding how to approach an enemy, maintaining composure using the game's control scheme, opening doors and doing things that would be one click in most other games. And besides, this doesn't include the enemies you won't be killing.
Oh my god, no, I don't want to see it, run!
Due to the episodic setup, most of the story's meat will be in the next game, Black Plague. So if you want to avoid huge spoilers, you can hop off before then. Otherwise, I'm going to go through the hooks that Overture has.
Go.
One of the weirdest aspects about this place is how disjointed it is. One area could be an old, haunted Scooby-Doo mineshaft, then the next room over could have modern machinery and working electricity. Exploring around, you find this place has had a lot of uses over the past century. In the early 1900s, it was being used as a lead mine, but one that was considered to be an especially dangerous lead mine, which is kind of like saying you found an especially dangerous nuke. To the point it was called a death mine. University researchers found abnormally higher rates of suicide and schizophrenia among the mine workers. Because again, all lead mines come with this, but the entire crew shouldn't be this insane or dead just yet. The researchers found that some rocks in the cave had hallucinogenic properties, and that was the cause of it. Some local Inuit workers claimed it was the work of the Turnget, which the university calls spirits of the mountains, but you can find an article written by a convert to Christianity who tries to define what these spirits and beliefs actually are under their new religion. He didn't try to pull off the Uno reverse card that practices like Hinduism do. Oh, you've got a new character? Welcome to the roster. So a Turngat is a disembodied spirit that causes... Oh, you've got a new character? Welcome...
What is this? religion museum or something?
To the roster.
Mary
so a
and
Turngat is a disembodied spirit
Gisha,
that causes
Ganesha?
misfortune, which on the low end means your tools break, and on the high end means a possession. So the writer acknowledges that it's basically a demon. But not all Turngat stories depict them as evil. The writer thinks it's because the tribal shamans are in on it too and part of the problem.
Language reached above the statue of the cherished Anaguk. What the fuck? Angaguk. Angakuk. Angakuk. The tribe shaman, and it should be obvious such people are in league with the but they're probably connected with the goblins from the previous video somehow. I can't say these words!
So current culprits are evil spirits or trippy rocks. Well, from there, part of the mine was converted into a British command bunker during World War II. And over the years, the soldiers there began to find strange artifacts. These are your save points, and they give you strange visions of Howard, yourself, strangers you don't recognize, and Philip thinks they're taking part of his soul. Strange events and deaths continued. Other scientists came to study the strange mutations in the wildlife, and it wasn't until a massive unknown disaster happened that the place was finally shut down. But it wasn't long after until another group began to set up, including Howard. They called the facility the Shelter and began to set up purely to study all the strange things happening. And they operated here with only relatively minor incidents for a good 30 years. Researching the strange substances, the wildlife, the artifacts, everything. And their reports don't come across like a government agency. They refer to their ranks by caste and imply that their work there has some kind of higher purpose. The Shelter is just one spot of interest, and they're powerful enough to operate all around the world. So does that make Red, the deranged voice, a secret society member? Nope. He's a simple miner who was caught in a cave-in. He spent 30 years reading, scavenging, and barely surviving in the dark. When you finally reach him, he's locked himself inside of an industrial furnace and is begging you to kill him. And he cannot be convinced otherwise.
You may wish to find what it is you seek, but that is a fiction. You cannot know what it is you sought through the vast leaden doorway, or else you would seek anything else in the world.
Red sounds equally happy and sad that you're there to kill him. He's solidly barricaded in with a key need to progress, so there's no going back. He says he's wanted to die for years, but it's against the rules, so he hasn't done so. The big cross he left at the front of the machine could be that he fears the sin of killing himself. Or there could be more to it that you can't comprehend just yet. No matter the reason, it's a dark day for a barbecue.
Oh my god!
It is a horribly slow process.
Yeah, well...
You didn't get to know Red well, but
fuck you! Oh my god! my microwave makes the same fucking sound.
His death so long and agonizing that it's an effective scene.
Oh my god.
After a rough journey and putting most of the Paw Patrol 6 feet under, you can finally enter the heart of the Shelter.
6 feet powdered, maybe. Under? Hello? Oh my god, are you chunking me?
And that wraps up Overture. Black Plague would come out a year later, but it picks up immediately after this concussion screen.
Sent it into the mine was no more, so he was killed, and so began my next chapter. How?
So let's get right into it. Philip is recast and Overture recapped in about a minute. It's more poetic than how straightforward the Overture setup was, but it feels like an appropriate shift for where the story is going.
I found a disused mining shaft and took shelter from the storm. You had to know how desperate I was.
Oh, this is him! This is him! So wait a second. It was... Wait. So this is... We're basically playing as the first character that we killed. And so the writing was about him, or was it about... That's why he killed him? What the fuck is going on, bro?
I was plagued by doubts, fears, and mysteries, and aided by a madman, Red. You had to know how lonely I was.
That's not a madman, that's crazy.
Red told me he wanted to die. You had to know
so
how
it is
guilty
him,
I
never
felt.
mind.
I ventured boldly onwards, and was struck down by my own heroics. You had to know how stupid I was.
Oh my god. I love
these things.
Poetic
so human,
flair.
So perfect. And yet still I failed to do what I must now ask of you.
Philip awakens somewhere in the shelter, imprisoned, and already in a certified Half-Life crawl space adventure. Compared to Overture, this is a proper modern research facility. It has employee amenities, ketchup, the most lore-significant of condiments, and that thing.
Hand! Oh my god, what the fuck is that thing?
Sometimes the world will break apart into surreal nightmares. It controls the same, but a lot has shifted in just that year. For one, the game looks a lot sharper. It might not come across in YouTube compression, especially because the game has a similar
No.
For one,
this you can actually see ray tracing. I mean, it's not ray tracing, it's lumen, but at the same time, the lumen they basically created and filled the lights and created the peroxes and everything. So it looks decent.
The game looks a lot beautiful. Sharper. It might not come across in YouTube compression, especially because the game has a similar drab color scheme as the previous one, but when you compare an identical room like the boat cabin, you can see where improvements to the lighting change the mood of an area. Some assets have been touched up here and there, but there's also a greater variety in locations. Hearing that Black Plague is in one research base makes it sound like it would be more static compared to Overture. But no, they let you explore a lot of the parts of the space, and then areas beyond that when things take a turn for the surreal. Aspects that were great before, like the sound, have better mixing and new enhancements.
Oh my god!
The soundtrack is a lot less repetitive, and uses its high points more effectively.
Lovely.
Aspects that were great before, like the sound, have better mixing and new enhancements. The soundtrack is a lot less
I actually very like this
repetitive,
the way
and
they
uses
did
its
that.
high points more effectively.
Only the beach has brought
You can see the better
far.
production value all over the place, and this even extends into the puzzles. Overture was logical, but mainly physics problem solving, which Black Plague still has plenty of. But now more problems require grisly and unusual solutions, like needing to extract blood for a door lock because a new policy banned
I can see that how
at
that
least
can get
according to
annoying.
the daily special menu. You might need to grab a severed head, some other body parts like you're digging through a Goodwill. Shai Hulud has a crackhead cousin causing problems, and sometimes it means you might need to grab a severed head, some other body parts like you're digging through a Goodwill. Shai Hulud has a
What the fuck? Is that a
crackhead
worm?
cousin causing problems, and sometimes it means setting up a fucking computer.
Human life is so banal. Is it always as monotone as this?
What the fuck?
I can't stand it. Let me
That's
out.
locator.
Even when it gets more bizarre, it's still rooted in logic, and there will be hints around. The otherworldly sequences are an exception, but they're mainly just asking for some experimenting. You can get stuck in more puzzles compared to Overture, but overall it's a good evolution. At its core, you're still thinking like you're a human being in the situation, but now some problems are becoming more fantastical. In real life you might have to push some furniture around every once in a while, but if you often find yourself trying to pull Tiberium out of a claw machine, you live a more charmed life than I.
That gotcha shit.
So this side of the game saw great improvements, but there's still more to come.
It never comes out. Unless you break it apart.
On the survival side, the first noticeable change is that batteries are an actual item now. They don't automatically recharge your flashlight, so you can now stock them up and use them as needed. And each one gives way more power, so you'll likely end the game with a lot of batteries on you. Plus, the dark is your friend more than ever. The Paw Patrol may have been 2 days out from retirement, but the shelter is full of mutated staff. They've been infected by some kind of virus that's changed their form, given them a self-feeding umbilical cord. They are monstrous, but they're not zombies. They'll call out to you and each other, they still use tools. There is intelligence in them, and they're a lot better at hunting you down than something like the dogs were. But what makes them especially dangerous is that this time around, you have no weapons to fight back with. Well, sort of. Overture's melee system is completely gone. The obvious effect is to make the infected more scary because they can't be killed. You can still distract them, or hide, or technically fight back by throwing an object to stun them for a moment. There is a way to kill them, but it's an incredibly janky one that the game clearly didn't intend. It's significant because this is the change that Frictional basically built their brand off of. You can't really fight the monsters, only run and hide. Overture's combat was floaty and strange, but it was also something that could have been iterated on. Instead, they threw the whole thing out the window for the next game. So why? Well, for one, it's a short dev cycle, and compared to fighting critters, having a humanoid enemy makes things more complicated. How do they physically react to hits? Do they block? Are we making a whole combat system now? If we keep it for the old enemies, how do we explain it not working on the new ones? Or do we take the tools away periodically somehow? Here's the thing, if you think of these two games as one game, it's actually paced out really well. You can improvise and fight back before, and you had some power. Now you're in a new hostile area with enemies you can't kill. And you don't lose tension fighting them in a way that can look silly. I really liked where the combat was going, but looking at the big picture, for this time frame, this was the right call. Besides, they do a great job
because they
using the
couldn't
fact
really
taken
probably create the combat animations for it, so they made it
combat away, which is very
like
different
Atlas,
than you never
no
had
combat.
combat at all. You know, a lot of those scariest levels in
Makes
games
sense.
lists don't come from pure horror games. Like, me and others have praised the Cradle in Thief Deadly Shadows to hell and back. Who knows if Penumbra or Amnesia would exist without this? Depending on what you do in Cyberpunk Phantom Liberty, there's this great sequence where you're
Oh my god, yes! This motherfucker gave me a heart attack. I'm gonna show you what happened. Bro, the moment that this scene happened, I literally was frozen. Holy. The last time I played this, that thing was scary, but this was terrifying. Fighting that fucking robot when you... Yeah, no. I'm never gonna betray Night Song again. Night Song, Songbird.
surrounded by this haunted mech. You could have been obliterating people all game long, and you do still have some tools for distracting or avoiding it. But you can't just get rid of it until you've gone through the gauntlet.
You cannot do anything.
A lot of great horror movies aren't people hiding the whole time. Even if they fail, they do try to be proactive. So then you go, oh no, she doesn't have a weapon anymore. Or, oh no, Brendan has the ranch again. So when Black Plague sends you to the kennels, and you hear the telltale dog music. Oh shit, I don't have a weapon this time. The horror games I enjoy most really know when to give and take. So when you're playing Black Plague, it teases you with challenges that Overture had, knowing you won't have the same solutions. It still teases you with challenges that Overture had.
What? That's actually sick. What does
really
it
know when to give and take. So when you're playing Black Plague, it teases you with challenges that Overture had, knowing you won't have the same solutions. It still has incredible, frantic, tense sequences that don't rely on combat at all. Only the threat of it coming, and you can't fight back anymore.
That's terrifying.
Because you're on the verge of unpacking a secret society and discovering the horrible truths of the world.
Bro, you might... reminds me of that enemy in Dead Space that could regenerate. You basically would waste your ammo if you fight it over and over. So it just keep coming back up. Holy shit, that's
because you're
crazy.
on the verge of unpacking a secret society and discovering the horrible truths of the world. You might expect the tone to be even more oppressive and lonely than Overture. And yeah, it does get way darker at a few points. But there's also a good amount of dark humor compared to before. How about the Secret Society? It has about 30,000 members worldwide and is called the Archaic, but only by technicality because it has no real name. Because a name gives power in identifying something, so Archaic is just an internal term. Their work was based off Leonardo da Vinci and founded by his student, Francesco Melzi, and they fueled rumors of their gay love affair to cover up their real research on beings not from this world. This is canon. The modern version of the Archaic is similar to Black Mesa, complete with having slideshows telling you about the importance of your cyanide capsule.
Shelter research station is encountering technical difficulties. Please have your personal cyanide capsule
side branches into different shit.
It's made perfectly clear how little the elites care about the lower caste. So as you explore, you get bits of corporate dark humor, which is played up, but not too often to be annoying. Also, you'll be interacting with a few characters this time around. Like Dr. Swanson, a shelter scientist who may have a cure for the infection, and Clarence, who is the infection waking up inside of Philip's brain.
Hello? Can you hear me?
Hello? I am under
what
water.
am I doing here?
Please.
Who am I? Why can't I hear their voices?
It's not clear when exactly Philip was infected, but Clarence appearing in the strange visions means he's well on his way to becoming a ghoul. Clarence has named himself after the character in A Wonderful Life because he also thinks he's a guardian angel. It's also because he's pissed off since he could go through all of Philip's memories and he never finished the movie.
How does it end? Now I'll never know.
I think Clarence is the most interesting character in the series. And the guy's an emotional roulette wheel to deal with. Because Clarence is the virus, but he hasn't been integrated in like you've seen with the other staff. It's not that Philip has special blood and Howard was warning him a way to prevent this. Clarence also has no idea why this is happening. But as he gets more comfortable in your body, he starts demonstrating how he can warp your senses. Starting with a simple color change, but then he takes away your vision entirely and then starts shifting doors and rooms around the map. He has a lot of sadistic glee in holding power over you, warping reality, encouraging creatures to come kill you. But then he'll wallow in fear and have an existential breakdown at what he is or what you are or how any of this works.
Why is he separate and yet we are bound together? Are we truly a we, or are we simply an I with two faces? What? I am no monkey.
Sometimes he's annoying, sometimes he's funny, sometimes you hate him. I don't think I could do justice to his big fuck up, but it's enough that Philip wants him out entirely. Dr. Swanson does have the cure, and she helps you get rid of the
to be
infection.
honest,
Though during this process, it's somehow...
That's how a villain. That's how you make a villain. They need to be annoying and based on what kind of personality you want to create your villain. And this seems to be fun for a, like, you know, mad scientist
Clarence into
doctor.
a new host, and he sets out to kill you himself. So what the hell is this virus?
What?
Well, the shelter calls it the Turngat.
Uh-oh.
They're real, but not how anyone thought they were. It is a virus that was released from a tomb centuries old, but also an intelligent life form. Whether or not they were a physical race at one point or always existed like this is unknown. Whatever it is, it's a hive mind. Howard was trying to translate ancient writings to find out more, and when the virus broke out, sent the letter to Philip. You do find him dead, and while he admits in writing that what he did to his family was horrible, he doesn't feel bad because the work was just too important. His final theory was that there could be a way to communicate with the Turngat hive mind. After all, the Inuit had some kind of relationship with it in their stories, and they weren't always bad. Dad's theory was correct, but judging by his demise...
Today, can't keep it in mind, I was correct. It is an intelligent beyond our wildest imagination. It told me everything I needed to know, what you needed to know. You could have not imagined it. I cannot accept it. God forgive us. God forgive us. What did we do? What are we? If God...
It's not
what?
Hopeful. But when Clarence has you cornered, the rest of the infected move up to destroy him.
There cannot be one. There can only be a soul. There cannot be one. There can only be a soul.
At the end, this one was more human than he would have believed.
What?
For his actions, I am sorry. For this next misconduct, I am sorry. Do not hate me.
Like your father before you, you meet the Turngat hive mind. According to it, it has long lived in fear of humanity. With its control over the creatures and staff, it could easily wipe out the shelter, but it wouldn't win against all of mankind. It does believe that most individual humans are good, but as a group they're destructive. And so it wants to test you. It gives you multiple trials with different solutions. Acting selflessly and for a greater whole is something that pleases it. And if you fully prove yourself, it reveals its side of the story. It is an ancient alien, but what the shelter called infection, some cultures called symbiosis. The Turngat's shared knowledge and memory meant that a person in a tribe who had it would be a great source of information. It could teach others and generally be wise.
Okay.
This worked in isolated pockets, but as humanity spread and grew, the Turngat decided to withdraw. Since it only thinks in one direction, it sees mankind as a giant brain ripping itself apart. We have no unified goal, are full of conflict, but keep advancing forward. So when its tomb was broken into, it attacked in self-defense. Experimenting with the virus and finding ways to cure it were ways of killing the Turngat. In ultimate irony, what it wants from Philip is the exact same thing it wanted from Howard. Destroy all information about the shelter, keep people away, and let me rest here in peace. The best thing Philip could have done was let sleeping dogs lie. This loops back to him writing the first letter as reality crumbles around him and he decides what to do. Weren't the infected trying to kill us all game? Sure, but until this point, it just saw Philip as another threat. Or it could have sensed the aberration that was Clarence and was more out to kill him.
How would he not know that Philip isn't a threat? Literally every other human that he met, at least to this point, at least the last one, tried to use it.
Is fine. Was it really pure self-defense
why wasn't
or detecting humans again? Did it just
test
attack
other
on sight?
ones?
If you really dig into the clues, there's plenty of evidence that says the Turngat is genuine, and there's lots of evidence saying it could be manipulative. Unlike Friction's later games, you don't make a choice here, Philip does it for you. And that's the end of Black Plague. It's a dark ending, but gives you a lot to chew on. Did the Turngat sever individual strands like Clarence because it's the opposite of humanity? Does it fear any individual not it and will do anything to survive? Don't get me wrong, it's a really fun game.
Bro, I get chills. That's actually open-ended to some degree. Open-ended with
when I played it, I was
Wild Dark
with some friends and we were tearing through a frozen pizza. It's a scary monster chases you game and really excels at that. But it takes an existential turn with a perfect cliffhanger that
it's a very good thriller.
It's a very good thriller. Fuck the trilogy, let's just make it 2 games. Well, through publisher, here's Requiem. An expansion for Black Plague. It's pure puzzles, no enemies, and implied to take place in Philip's brain during the end of Black Plague. So, here we go.
His brain.
You teleport between levels using a fucking Stargate and talk to many characters throughout the series, living or dead, or their tape recorders, and the energy has gone from Black Mesa to Aperture Science. The levels are all pure problem solving and not meant to be real places. You manipulate gravity emitters and timed gates and teleporters. There are no new monsters. In fact, there are no monsters at all. Some areas have nice atmosphere, but there's no tension, and there's no feeling of stakes or reason for doing
this is not the good
Sometimes
at
you heavily
all.
rely on exploding ketchup bottles, because like I said, these are lore significant condiments. It starts breaking the 4th wall and calling you the player, so I broke its 4th wall and started breaking all the fucking physics.
Some ketchup.
No more platforming for
Some
me.
ketchup's good.
You can choose between 2 different endings and
ketchup has never been that spicy anyways.
no more platforming for me. You can choose between 2 different endings and one is burning yourself in the furnace with red, or you can just leave and get back in the boat and it's all symbolism and I don't care. This doesn't matter. None of this matters. They used to sell this one standalone, but not anymore. It's only 2 hours or so, but a terrible follow-up to Black Plague. What do you call an expansion that takes away so much?
Oh my god.
Is it looks... I don't have much to say, it just feels messy. I would say stop at Black Plague, but there is one more caveat. And that would be Penumbra Necrologue. This is a mod for Amnesia the Dark Descent that's as long as the entire Penumbra trilogy combined. It does some things similar to Requiem like bringing characters back, but Clarence was warping your perception, so that's all fine. The writing and voice acting are good for a mod, but they are the biggest giveaways that it's not an official game. It even reuses some ideas and areas from Requiem, but makes them way more interesting. There are lots of new areas, new challenges, enemies restored and polished up from the tech demo,
do that shit.
entirely optional areas and encounters, some puzzles have multiple solutions, multiple endings, and an original soundtrack.
Bro, tons of work goes into this. Tons of hours. Bro, the amount of time this dude's hands, the person who's making these mods hands, have been just they couldn't press Control and C. They couldn't press Control and V. They couldn't press T. They couldn't press any of the buttons because their pinky is numb with pain. So please appreciate the modders who work on these mods. Please, especially a big mod like this. It's so many hours of just going through
if you felt burned
to
by
make
Requiem
it happen.
and can tolerate some budget moments, this is a great send-off. Story-wise, I think Overture and Black Plague work best together.
Actually,
but if you want an entertaining what-if or just want to play more Penumbra and a shiny new engine, Necrologue is the place to go. It even has its own expansion built in to tie up loose ends in its own story and give a bit of detail of what happened before the outbreak.
This
one does go farther off the range with the story and some enemy designs and other stuff for my liking. But it is cool there is this line of active fan games. In fact, a new one just came out using the Soma engine. If you liked Penumbra, they're definitely worth checking out using the Soma engine.
Actually good.
If you liked Penumbra, they're definitely worth checking out. Despite its shortcomings and lack
that
of polish
engine was
areas,
good.
I
I
love
didn't
Penumbra,
like Soma that much.
Or at least I love 2/3 of Penumbra and some stuff some fans made. It's especially neat now where you can see them experimenting before the Amnesia conga line. I did invoke the Goglins on this one. The pinned link will have all the Penumbra games for about $1. They also wanted to mix and match with Soma and some other stuff, so we'll see how that goes. The cold is finally setting in here, so more spooky games to come soon.
I missed it. But Soma, I really wish they made a game, underwater game that's actually good like that, like Soma or Bioshock 1.
How did I predict what the Space Marine 2 sequel would be? Well, at the time, all of that seemed dead in the water, but it was what made sense. You need a horde enemy that's fun to cut apart, you don't want to do orcs again, so Tyranids make the most sense for that, and you don't want to do a pure industrial desert city again.
Okay, I do not understand what is happening, so I'm not gonna try to learn inside jokes.
Any interest in covering Bolt Gun? I still haven't finished it. There will be some more Warhammer videos in the upcoming year, but there have been some videos like this that I just put off too long. Thoughts on the new Factorio expansion? Having the space guy working on it is terrifying. Everything I've seen looks great, except for item quality levels, which I'm not 100% sold on. I get how you can effectively get a reliable flow of them.
To be fair, Factorio, I haven't even went that far yet. I basically just expand that basic shit that I have. And then maybe get some advanced shit. I don't know anything about the space. But yeah, I'm not gonna try to understand some of these inside jokes and some of the references and Q&A of MandaloreGaming. So yeah, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed, please leave a like and subscribe. This game, at least this bit, when he put the rock in the fan, blew my mind away. I haven't seen a game do that without a cinematic that you can just bonk and do it easily. I really enjoy messing with physics and physics that is, you know, free form of physics. Like when you could move the cryons in Layers of Fears. Like you could like move the globe and like spin it this shit. Oh my god. I love that. But yeah. This game is in so many different games, seems like it. There is one in Amnesia, there is one in Soma. But Soma and Amnesia are a good combination to use the engines from. But yeah, thanks for watching and see you all later.